I work remotely, spending my days checking security certificates, filing reports, and attending virtual meetings. It's not the most exciting job, but it keeps the bills paid. Once a month, however, my company requires me to show up in person at the Salt Lake City office for a mandatory meeting. Normally, it's a routine trip. Wake up early, drive an hour south, sit through a meeting, then head home to Ogden. Nothing unusual ever happens. At least, that was true until one particular summer afternoon in 2022. It was a hot, dry day in June. My meeting had just wrapped up around 12:30 p.m., and I was more than ready to head home. As I got into my car, I suddenly remembered something. I had installed the Uber app a while back and signed up as a driver, though I had never actually used it. I wasn't looking to make a career out of it, but I figured if I was already driving home, why not make a few extra bucks along the way? I turned the app on, waiting to see if I'd get a decent ride request. Within minutes, several pings came through. Most of them were short trips, just a mile or two. Nothing that felt worth my time. Then one stood out. A pickup in Salt Lake City with a drop-off in Ogden. Perfect. That's where I was headed anyway. I accepted the ride without hesitation. The passenger was a college student, maybe in her early 20s, along with a friend. They were normal, chatty, friendly, nothing strange about them at all. We made small talk about school and summer plans as I drove. And before I knew it, I was pulling into the Weber State University parking lot to drop them off. Simple, easy money. I figured I had time for one more ride before heading home. That's when I saw it. A new request popped up. The pickup location was in Ogden, and the drop-off was in Clearfield, about a 30-minute drive south. That seemed like a solid fare. So I tapped accept without thinking too much about it. But as I followed the GPS toward the pickup location, something started to feel off. The destination read 10th Avenue and Martin Hilltop Drive. Something about it felt familiar, though I couldn't immediately place it. As I zigzagged through Ogden's suburban streets, I was too focused on navigating to think about why that address stood out. Then I made a final turn and my stomach dropped. I had just pulled up to Ogden Cemetery. I stared at my phone, hoping there was some kind of GPS error. Maybe Uber had glitched and put the pin in the wrong spot. That had to be it. The idea of picking up a passenger from a cemetery in the middle of the afternoon was unsettling, to say the least. Just to test it, I canceled the ride. I waited for a moment, expecting the request to reset. It didn't. A few seconds later, the same request popped up again. Same name, same location. The rider was still waiting inside the cemetery. I hesitated. Maybe it was just someone visiting a loved one who didn't have a car. That made sense, right? It had been Memorial Day recently, after all. That thought reassured me just enough to accept the ride a second time. But as I drove through the cemetery gates, that reassurance quickly faded. Ogden Cemetery is massive, one of the largest in the state. It stretches across acres of land, filled with thousands of graves, some modern, some from the 1800s, their headstones worn and cracked by time. The deeper I drove, the more uneasy I felt. The trees lining the path were strange, their trunks bulging unnaturally, as if something was pressing against them from the inside. I had heard a childhood story once, something about trees that became haunted when spirits got trapped inside them. I had never put much stock in those kinds of tales. But now, driving down a deserted road, surrounded by those twisted, gnarled trees, I wasn't so sure. I glanced at my phone. The rider's name displayed as C. Cunningham. That was odd. Normally, Uber only displayed first names, not full names or initials. Something about it made my skin crawl. Then my GPS spoke. In 500 yards, pick up C. Cunningham. My hands clenched around the wheel. I drove slowly, eyes darting from side to side. There were no people, no signs of anyone waiting. In 200 yards, pick up C. Cunningham. My breath caught in my throat. I could see everything ahead of me now. There was no one there. The pickup spot was at a dead end, where a massive blackened tree loomed over a cluster of ancient, forgotten graves. That's when I saw it. One of the headstones bore the name C. Cunningham. I slammed my foot on the brakes. Pick up C. Cunningham. I locked my doors. My chest was rising and falling in short. Panic breaths. No, This wasn't possible. I looked around one last time. Nobody was there. That's when the GPS glitched. In 1 yard, pick up C, Cunningham. In 5 yards, pick up C, Cunningham. In 2 miles, pick up C, Cunningham. I felt sick. Something was very, very wrong. I checked the drop-off location. Not just anywhere in Clearfield. It was the Clearfield Cemetery. A ghost ride from one graveyard to another. I canceled the trip instantly and floored it out of there. I didn't go straight home. My mother always warned me never to go home right after being somewhere haunted. They follow you, she would say. So I pulled into a gas station, sat in my car, and tried to calm down. My hands were shaking as I reached for my drink. My mind raced with possibilities. Was this a prank? A gang initiation? A glitch? None of those explanations sat right. And then, months later, I checked the Uber app just out of curiosity. It was still there. C, Cunningham. Same location. Same request. Still waiting. It had been weeks. Maybe even months. I uninstalled Uber that day. Permanently. I'll never know what would have happened if I had actually waited. But one thing's for sure. Whoever, or whatever, was waiting for me that day was never going to leave that cemetery. And they sure as hell weren't human. I paid $49.95 for revenge. Now I can't make it stop. It started with an ad. A stupid, bizarre ad that popped up as I was mindlessly scrolling late one night. Get revenge on anyone for just $49. $95 plus taxes. Results guaranteed. At first, I thought it was a joke. The image above it certainly didn't help. A lopsided cake sitting alone in a dimly lit room. No candles, no celebration. Just a single, tiny knife stabbed into the center, as if someone had started to cut a slice and then stopped. Below it, in bold red letters, "Start your 7-day plan today." I laughed. Then I clicked. The site was minimalist, almost eerily so. No reviews, no testimonials, just a simple form to enter a name. I skimmed the fine print. Something about escalating consequences and a 7-day sequence of targeted pranks. Finality of contract. One line caught my attention. Recipient must be personally known to the sender. This includes in-person acquaintances, direct online communication, or individuals whose written words the sender has read. Weird wording, but I barely paid attention. When I reached the name entry, I hesitated. Something about typing a name into the box felt wrong, like crossing an invisible line, like I was opening a door I couldn't close. But the choice was obvious. Megan. Megan had been my best friend since high school. Or at least, that's what she liked to call herself. For years, she had gaslighted, manipulated, and humiliated me. Every insult disguised as a joke. Every whispered comment to make sure I never quite fit in. Every "oh, I just assumed you wouldn't want to come," after she invited everyone but me. A part of me hated her. Another part of me was terrified of what I had just done. Still, I clicked submit. Nothing happened. No confirmation email. No receipt. Just silence. I rolled my eyes and went to bed, convinced I just wasted my money. Day 1. The next morning, Megan fell down a flight of stairs between classes. She broke her wrist, sprained her ankle. I overheard her telling our friend group, voice shaking, that she swore someone had pushed her. But there was no one there. I laughed it off at first. Megan was always dramatic. But later, alone in my dorm, I felt a creeping unease. I did this, didn't I? No, of course not. Just a coincidence, right? Day 2. Megan's car swerved off the road. She said the brakes didn't work. The mechanic found nothing wrong. She wasn't seriously hurt, but she looked shaken. More shaken than she should have been. That sinking feeling in my gut returned. I was starting to believe. Day 3. Megan came to class in long sleeves. At some point, she absent-mindedly pushed them up, and I saw the scratches. Deep, jagged, unnatural, like something had clawed her in her sleep. She caught me staring. "I don't know what's happening," she whispered, voice small and scared. I think I might be losing my mind. For the first time, I wanted to tell her I was sorry, but I wasn't sure who I'd be apologizing to, her or myself. Day 4. I passed by Megan's dorm. The door was open. People stood around, whispering. I peeked inside. Liar. Thief. The words were spray-painted across her walls in jagged, erratic lines. Her roommates swore Megan never left her bed that night, that the door had been locked from the inside. I felt sick. Day 5. Megan coughed, then choked, then vomited. Not bile, not food, teeth, not hers. Her mouth was still full of perfect, white teeth, but the ones on the floor were yellowed, broken, decayed, like they had been ripped from dozens of different mouths. She screamed. I nearly did, too. That night, I sat awake, staring at my laptop, shaking. What the hell had I done? Day 6. Megan didn't come to class. When I finally found her, she was hunched in the common room, rocking back and forth, eyes darting at things no one else could see. This was my fault. I checked my bank statement, stomach twisting. The charge on the website was still pending. But now there was a new note next to it. Payment in progress. Please nominate the next recipient. My hands trembled as I clicked. A web page loaded. You must nominate someone. 7 days will begin again. If no name is submitted, the cycle will revert to the original sender. My stomach dropped. No. I slammed my laptop shut. But the next morning, I woke up with a scratch across my stomach. Not just a scratch, letters. Tick-tock. I panicked. I had to pick someone. I wasn't ready to die. I typed in Olivia. She laughed at Megan's jokes. She made plenty of her own. The cycle restarted. I watched in horror as Olivia fell, then bled, then screamed. By day 5, she was pulling long strands of black hair from her throat. By day 7, she was gone. But the cycle didn't stop. Another charge appeared. Another demand. Next recipient required. I ran out of names. A professor who humiliated me. A barista who sneered at me. A roommate from high school. Each time, I watched them unravel. Teeth falling out. Fingers bending backward. Their bodies rotting before my eyes. Then, one day, I stared at the empty box on the website. I had no one left. I knew what would happen. The cycle would revert to me. I tried entering celebrities. Strangers. Politicians. It rejected them all. The recipient must be personally known to the sender. I stopped breathing. There was no one left. And now it's day 6. I wake up covered in scratches. My reflection whispering things I don't understand. I feel something watching me from the corner of every room. The floorboards creak when no one is there. I know what's waiting for me tomorrow. I have 1 day left, and I have no one else to choose. Except you.